and patience is running short. This is the mass scramble to get away, but not everyone can afford to get out.
I had a ticket for $700 and then I refreshed it and it was gone.
With all major airlines suspending service in South Florida Friday night, tonight it's social media that's taking off. Complaints of price gouging, $10,000 for 3 tickets from Miami to New York.
People are not trying to go on vacation, people are trying to survive.
Some airlines are capping fares as low as $99, but it's nearly impossible to find a seat. These newlyweds just married this morning.
We're just trying to get out of here.
Are tonight desperate to get home to Dallas before the storm hits.
We really haven't been able to enjoy everything the way that we wanted to because we've been so stressed.
With the overcrowded airport tweeting MIA is not a shelter, tonight the crunch is on both by air and by sea. The 2 busiest cruise ports in the world are affected. 40,000 passengers impacted by the storm.
The cruise lines that are supposed to be docking here on Saturday are not. They're coming in early, dropping off their passengers.
Tonight, we found passengers frustrated right back at the airport, many with nowhere to turn and no easy way to get home.
We're just at their mercy at the moment.
This program brought to you by LegalZoom. Get legal help for your business and family at LegalZoom.com.
Hurricane Irma is a monster Category 5 hurricane taking aim at the Bahamas and Florida. We have plenty of concern over the next couple of days and heading into the weekend, as potentially a major hurricane could just wreak havoc in so many areas. Hurricane warnings, hurricane watches. In fact, hurricane watches for South Florida go from Jupiter Inlet down through the Keys, meaning we are expecting hurricane conditions, hurricane force winds likely within the next 48 hours or so. And the beach behind me, which has been very, very calm today here at Hollandale Beach, will be a lot different in the days to come. Obviously, a lot of people are trying to get out. Evacuation orders have been issued in many locations across South Florida, and that means a lot of traffic out there on the roadways and a lot of people in just backed up traffic, bumper to bumper for miles and miles and miles on end across I-95 and I-75, even over in Tampa. In Tampa, literally, all the way up to Atlanta, you had traffic today, evacuation traffic. So that just shows you how big of an issue this is and how many people were trying to evacuate. The airports clogged up as well. So many people trying to get out before the airports close, and a very frustrating experience for passengers.
Just kind of aggravated and tired of trying to figure out how we're going to get home with the storm coming.
You're just kind of anxious and worried about if you're going to get home or stuck somewhere in a shelter or something of that nature. So really not, more or less just kind of worried and anxious to get home.
We have huge cancellations for tomorrow across South Florida. The airports in South Florida, more than 1,100 cancellations for Friday. More than 500 of those are at Miami, 233 of those out of Fort Lauderdale. And they'll cease operations at Fort Lauderdale Airport tomorrow, 7:45 p.m. Okay, by the way, I want to show you what the guys are doing down here on the beach. They've been working hard filling up the sandbags. You guys are going to sandbag the garage doors, right? Yep. All right, got to keep the water out. They're concerned about rain. They're a distance off the beach, but they say, you know, they get a lot of water, even just a regular summertime thunderstorm. And Dr. Knabb, I think that's just one of the other factors that we have to consider. I mean, rightfully so, surge and wind getting a lot of hype, and they should. But if you're talking, you know, a foot of rain, you just can't handle that.
No, especially if that foot of rain happens in a very short amount of time, Mike, which is what a major hurricane can do. So all of the hazards are in play. Winds, storm surge, inland flooding, tornadoes, rip currents, waves, everything, and the whole state of Florida is in play. Right now, it is the Turks and Caicos that are taking the brunt of this hurricane. Let me show you where this Category 5 hurricane is exerting its full force right now. Here we are at Providenciales on the northern eye wall. They are really getting it in a bad way, and it's headed toward the Bahamas and will affect Cuba, and then it's Florida over the next couple of days as we move from a hurricane watch to a hurricane warning situation in southern Florida pretty soon. And hurricane watches will be extended northward for the rest of the Florida Peninsula, I'm pretty sure, before too much longer. And note that Georgia and the Carolinas are in play here, and there's going to be land interaction. There's going to be some increase in wind shear, and that's why the intensity forecast is lower for Monday p.m. than it is when it's approaching southern Florida. But if it stays farther to the east and there's less land interaction, that could bring a stronger hurricane than shown here into the coast of Georgia and or South Carolina. Same kind of goes if it stays on the west side of the cone and stays over the Gulf of Mexico. The Big Bend of Florida could get a stronger system. But in any event, the entire Florida Peninsula likely to get the direct or pretty close to direct effects of a hurricane. And I wanted to highlight again what the primary models are doing, just to highlight the uncertainty and to remind everyone how things can change. With the European and the GFS models showing slightly different, but importantly different tracks. The European model going toward the southwest coast, GFS model to the southeast coast of Florida. They're very similar in terms of the timing, the forward speed, so we're getting increased confidence in the time we have left to get ready, and then both of them going northward over the Florida Peninsula. Both or one of those could change. We could get landfall on the southwest coast. We could get landfall on the east coast of Florida. Nobody on the Florida Peninsula is off the hook from the direct impacts from this major hurricane. Could be Cat 4 or even 5 when it first reaches southern Florida. Now, in terms of timing, it's still early Saturday, where the winds of tropical storm force could first arrive in the southern Florida peninsula. And then in the northern Florida area, that would be Sunday morning. And then if you're in southern Georgia and the coast of South Carolina, the earliest reasonable time of arrival, winds of tropical storm force, would be Sunday night. So that just gives you an idea of how much time is left to prepare for all of the hazards. And first and foremost, in terms of evacuations, is the storm surge hazard, where we could get 5 to 10 feet above normally dry ground in the southern Florida area. These forecasts will be extended northward, and it's storm surge primarily that is the reason for evacuations. And in these areas in southern Florida, the Florida Keys, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, under a variety of evacuation instructions, you need to leave these areas if you have been told by local officials to do so. And I wanted to highlight something about southern Florida that we all know, is that there's a lot of high rises. And if you're in one of these high rises and you're in one of those evacuation zones that have been told to go, don't think, well, I'll just vertically evacuate. I'll be fine because the storm surge is going to be way below my floor. But you need to leave, and here's why. Number one, if you're, say, 20, 30 floors up, you're buying yourself another category stronger in terms of the strength of the winds, and there could be flying debris coming from other nearby buildings that could come into your windows and make it for a very dangerous situation. But importantly, let's say you're high enough up, the storm surge doesn't get to your floor, the winds and the windows hold up, but you could still be isolated in a high-rise in an area that has been devastated by storm surge. Your community is flooded and damaged. Then what happens is you are stuck in a high-rise with no power, and if you get hurt, you get cut, somebody has a heart attack, help can't come if the area has been significantly impacted. So if you're in a high-rise in an evacuation zone, you need to get out as well. And it's not just South Florida where the evacuation instructions are in effect. Collier, Lee, Pinellas, St. John's, all the way up by St. Augustine, Mark. A lot of places under evacuation instructions. Everybody in Florida in coastal areas needs to find out if they've been told to evacuate.
Absolutely. And Dr. Knabb, those evacuations started in an area of Florida that has one road in and one road out. And that, of course, is the Keys. Tens of thousands have left the Florida Keys ahead of Irma. The Keys under a mandatory evacuation order. And joining us now is Becky Herron, the spokesperson with Monroe County Emergency Management. Of course, the Keys in Monroe County. So, Becky, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
You are welcome.
Can you give us an update on the evacuation effort along the Keys? Do you know if just about everyone obeyed those evacuation orders?
I don't think it would be fair to say just about everyone, but we did have a good number of people leave, and we are still encouraging people to leave. There's still time, and we're hoping that people would take advantage of that time. The time is certainly growing shorter, however, and I would encourage them to leave ASAP if they're planning to. We always get a number of people that stay, and that always is a scary proposition, of course.
What do you want to tell the people that stay? I mean, you wouldn't be able to get to them if they needed help during this, right?
That's exactly right. You know, once the storm starts taking place and our people become endangered if they were to go out in it, we're not going to send people out for emergencies. If you are having trouble in the middle of a storm and you call us, we're going to tell you, I'm sorry, we can't send anyone. We're not going to put our people in harm's way to save someone because they made a bad choice to stay during a storm.
I know there are several hospitals within the Keys. How does an evacuation like that go down, and is it complete at this point?
It is. Well, the hospitals are going to be closing all of them as of tomorrow. There are some patients that were evacuated out. Fortunately, there weren't a large number of them that had to be evacuated out, but there were a large number of them. The hospitals have been handling that very well. It's gone very smoothly.
And any kind of final message you want to get out to people, whether they already evacuated and are just listening for information from you, or if they're trying to stay behind?
Well, I'd like to say, I suppose, that for those of you who did leave, continue to monitor local radio and television stations. We're going to keep in touch with you. We're going to let you know how it goes, and we're going to let you know when it's time to return. Please don't try to return before we tell you it's time, because it may not be safe, it may not be a good place to be, and we may not be able to let you in. So make sure that you listen closely and don't come back until we tell you it's okay.
That kind of return after an evacuation is always just as difficult. Becky Herron, Monroe County, Florida Emergency Management, thank you so much for joining us tonight.